Are you ready to fall asleep with 100 differences between the 1930s and the 2020s America? Let's begin. 1. Home electricity and comfort. From candles and kerosene lamps to smart bulbs and solar homes. A century ago, households glowed under the soft flicker of candles and kerosene lamps. Light was precious, limited, and sometimes dangerous. The transition to electric bulbs in the early 20th century marked a revolution in home comfort. By the 1950s, electricity powered not only light but fans, radios, and refrigerators, transforming domestic life into something unrecognizable to earlier generations. Fast forward to the 21st century, and homes have become intelligent ecosystems. Smart bulbs adjust brightness and color through voice commands, while solar panels harness sunlight to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. What once required human effort, lighting wicks, refilling oil, or checking fuses, has become automated, efficient, and environmentally conscious. Today's energy systems prioritize sustainability and convenience. A single smartphone can control the illumination of an entire house, signaling how far we have come from the dim glow of a single candle. In less than 150 years, humanity has moved from mere survival lighting to customized ambience, merging comfort, design, and eco-awareness. Home electricity has evolved from a simple utility into an art form of living. 2. Kitchens of the 1930s versus 2020's hand-cranked tools, replaced by digital appliances and voice assistants. In the kitchens of the 1930s, cooking was an exercise in endurance and skill. Women, often the designated cooks, used hand-cranked egg beaters, cast-iron stoves, and iceboxes cooled by delivered ice blocks. Recipes were passed down through handwritten cards, and every meal required planning around the limitations of available tools. By contrast, kitchens of the 2020s are centers of innovation. Digital ovens preheat themselves via smartphone apps, refrigerators remind owners when groceries are low, and voice assistants like Alexa or Google Home respond to commands with precise timing and recipe guidance. The art of cooking remains, but the labor has transformed. What once required hours of manual preparation now takes minutes, assisted by technology that anticipates needs. Yet, even amid automation, there's a nostalgic return to the authenticity of handmade meals. Modern cooks blend the efficiency of digital precision with the warmth of traditional recipes. The evolution from mechanical to digital mirrors a broader cultural shift, from survival and routine to creativity and leisure. Kitchens today reflect empowerment, inclusivity, and technological artistry. 3. Morning routines. From drawing water from a pump to brewing coffee via smart devices. In the early 20th century, a morning began with physical labor. Water had to be drawn from outdoor pumps, wood or coal fires kindled for warmth, and breakfast prepared over stoves that demanded constant attention. The process of simply starting the day was a symphony of motion and effort. By the 21st century, that ritual has transformed dramatically. Running water, automatic heating, and smart devices have redefined the concept of convenience. Today, a coffee machine can start brewing at a preset hour, synchronized with an alarm clock or phone reminder. Toothbrushes analyze oral health, mirrors display the weather, and thermostats adjust temperatures before one even steps out of bed. What once took 30 minutes of manual tasks now unfolds almost effortlessly in seconds. Yet, with all this ease comes a subtle irony. The time saved is often reinvested in digital distractions. The modern morning, while efficient, sometimes lacks the mindfulness of the past. Still, the shift from fetching water to whispering "brew my coffee" captures the breathtaking arc of human progress, one that balances time, technology, and comfort. 4. Family roles, gender roles, and household expectations, evolving across generations. In the 1940s and 50s, family roles were rigidly defined. Men were breadwinners, women were homemakers, and children were expected to obey without question. The household revolved around traditional hierarchies, reinforced by media and social expectations. Over the decades, however, these boundaries began to blur. The feminist movements of the 1960s and 70s challenged domestic stereotypes, empowering women to pursue careers, education, and independence. By the 2020s, family dynamics have diversified beyond recognition. Stay-at-home fathers, dual-income households, and shared domestic duties are now commonplace. Technology has also shifted the balance. Online schooling, remote work, and digital parenting tools enable flexibility once unimaginable. Families today are not defined by gender roles, but by cooperation and adaptability. Emotional labor, once invisible, is now openly discussed and valued. Though inequalities persist, the evolution toward partnership over patriarchy marks one of society's greatest transformations. Family roles now mirror broader ideals: respect, equality, and shared purpose, reshaping what home truly means. 5. Rural versus urban living migration, from farmlands to megacities. At the dawn of the 20th century, most families lived in rural communities, their livelihoods tied to agriculture. Life followed the rhythm of the seasons, and social circles were small yet intimate. The post-World War II era, however, ignited a massive migration toward industrial centers. Factories, education, and urban amenities pulled millions from farmlands into bustling cities. By the 2020s, megacities like Tokyo, New York, and Mumbai became symbols of opportunity and congestion. Skyscrapers replaced silos, and apartment balconies replaced open fields. Urban living brought convenience, but also stress, pollution, and isolation. Meanwhile, modern technology bridged the rural-urban divide. Internet access, renewable energy, and remote work allowed many to return to countryside, living without sacrificing connectivity. The 21st century has introduced a new hybrid digital ruralism, where individuals seek peace, space, and sustainability while staying linked to global systems. What began as migration for survival has become movement by choice. Humanity continues to oscillate between the simplicity of land and the dynamism of the city, forever seeking balance between progress and peace. 6. Home entertainment radio programs versus streaming platforms. In the 1930s and 40s, the radio was the glowing heart of home entertainment. Families gathered around a single wooden set, captivated by dramas, comedies, and news broadcasts. Those voices, transmitted through static airwaves, offered connection and imagination during uncertain times. Each program was an event, every tune-in a ritual. The arrival of television in the mid-20th century expanded this wonder, yet radio's intimacy remained unmatched. Fast forward to the 2020s, and entertainment has become a personalized universe. Streaming platforms like Netflix, Spotify, and YouTube deliver endless content on demand. Instead of gathering in one room, each family member now carries a private screen, customizing playlists and viewing habits. What once required patience waiting for a favorite show or song is now instant. However, this digital abundance comes with nostalgia for the shared experience of listening together. The laughter and suspense that once united families have become fragmented into individual feeds. Still, from radio waves to fiber optics, the spirit of storytelling endures. Whether through static or streaming, humanity continues to seek comfort, escape, and connection through sound and screen. 7. Laundry and cleaning washboards versus AI-driven washing machines. In the early 20th century, laundry day was a full-body workout. Women scrubbed clothes on washboards, wrung them by hand, and hung them to dry under the sunday. Soap flakes and elbow grease were the tools of cleanliness. The mid-century introduction of electric washing machines and dryers changed domestic life forever, freeing hours once consumed by manual labor. Fast forward to the 2020s, and cleaning technology borders on the futuristic. Washing machines now sense fabric types, measure detergent automatically, and even connect to Wi-Fi for maintenance alerts. Robotic vacuums navigate rooms with artificial intelligence, mapping spaces and avoiding obstacles with precision. Voice commands can start a cycle or summon a cleaning device, making the once-dreaded wash day nearly effortless. Yet, this convenience raises new questions about energy use, repairability, and the human connection to domestic work. Where ancestors took pride in spotless linens achieved by hand, today's users take satisfaction in efficiency and innovation. The journey from soap basins to smart sensors reflects not only technological progress, but also the evolving meaning of care. Less about effort, more about time reclaimed. 8. Grocery shopping. Local markets and ration stamps versus online delivery apps. In the 1930s and 40s, grocery shopping was a sensory affair. People walked to local markets, exchanged greetings with familiar vendors, and inspected produce by touch and smell. During wartime, ration books dictated what families could buy, and resourcefulness was a survival skill. Homegrown vegetables and preserved goods filled the gaps when supplies ran short. By the 2020s, the experience has transformed into one of digital convenience. Mobile apps and online marketplaces deliver fresh ingredients with a few taps, often within hours. Barcodes, QR codes, and subscription boxes replace paper lists and ration stamps. The global supply chain ensures variety year-round, exotic fruits in winter, spices from continents away. Yet, the efficiency of online shopping sometimes sacrifices community connection. The neighborhood grocer who once knew every family's preferences has been replaced by algorithms predicting tastes. Still, a quiet resurgence of farmers' markets and local sourcing reflects a longing for authenticity amid automation. Grocery shopping, once a weekly ritual of necessity, has become an expression of choice, balancing convenience with conscience in a world that moves at digital speed. 9. Temperature and climate comfort. Fans and fireplaces versus central air and climate control. For centuries, humans battled the elements with simple means: fireplaces for warmth, fans for relief, and open windows for ventilation. In the 1920s, only the wealthy enjoyed early mechanical cooling systems. Most families adapted through seasonal habits: layered blankets in winter, shaded porches in summer. The invention of central heating and air conditioning in the mid-20th century changed comfort forever. By the 2020s, climate control has become a science of precision. Smart thermostats learn daily routines, adjusting temperatures automatically to conserve energy. Solar panels and geothermal systems push sustainability to the forefront, allowing homes to maintain ideal conditions without excessive consumption. The ability to manipulate indoor climate has reshaped architecture, fashion, and even mood. Yet, this convenience has also distanced people from nature's rhythms. Once, the crackle of a fire or the breeze through a window marked the changing seasons. Now, digital thermostats create a perpetual 22 degrees of comfort. The journey from firelight to algorithmic warmth reveals both triumph and tension, a mastery of nature that sometimes costs us its intimacy. 10. Leisure at home. Board games and letter writing versus gaming and social media. Before screens dominated daily life, leisure at home was tactile, creative, and social. Families played chess, cards, or Scrabble, and friends exchanged handwritten letters across towns or oceans. These activities demanded patience and imagination, building bonds through presence and shared time. The late 20th century introduced video games and personal computers, planting the seeds of digital leisure. By the 2020s, entertainment has expanded into virtual worlds and social networks. Multiplayer games connect millions across continents, while social media transforms living rooms into stages of self-expression. Leisure is now both private and public, spent scrolling, streaming, or competing in real time. Yet, in this era of constant connectivity, the value of genuine connection sometimes fades. The handwritten letter, though nearly obsolete, symbolizes a slower kind of joy that modern speed cannot replicate. Still, the essence of leisure remains: the pursuit of pleasure, creativity, and belonging. Whether through dice rolls or digital avatars, humans continue to seek play as a vital expression of life at home. 11. Automobiles. The Ford Model A versus electric and autonomous vehicles. In the late 1920s, the Ford Model A symbolized freedom and progress. It was noisy, mechanical, and demanded hands-on care, yet it gave ordinary people the ability to travel farther than ever before. Families embarked on Sunday drives, roads stretched across towns, and the world suddenly felt smaller. Over the decades, the automobile evolved from a novelty to a necessity. By the 2020s, sleek electric cars glide almost silently through city streets, guided by algorithms rather than human hands. Autonomous vehicles promise a future where accidents are rare and commuting becomes time reclaimed. Charging stations replace gas pumps, and dashboards transform into digital command centers. Yet, the spirit of adventure remains unchanged. The hum of an engine, or now, the whisper of a battery, still carries the same promise of discovery. From grease-stained mechanics to artificial intelligence, the car's century-long journey tells a story of innovation, independence, and the enduring human desire to move forward. 12. Air travel. Propeller planes to commercial jets. When air travel first took off in the early 20th century, it was a daring act of courage. Passengers climbed aboard small, noisy propeller planes that shook with every gust of wind. Flights were rare, expensive, and thrilling, a privilege for the wealthy and the brave. The 1950s ushered in the jet age, shrinking the world overnight. Suddenly, people could cross oceans in hours instead of days. By the 2020s, air travel has become routine, with millions of passengers taking to the skies daily. Jetliners now boast Wi-Fi, reclining seats, and entertainment systems that rival home theaters. Yet, the magic of flight still lingers, an echo of the Wright brothers' dream. Sustainability has become the next frontier. Electric aircraft and biofuel engines promise a cleaner horizon. From fragile propellers to supersonic jets, the evolution of flight reflects humanity's greatest paradox: our endless pursuit of speed paired with our longing to soar free. 13. Road infrastructure, dirt highways versus interstate systems. In the early 1900s, roads were little more than muddy trails connecting small towns. Automobiles shared space with horses, and long-distance travel was unpredictable at best. The creation of paved highways in the 1920s and 30s reshaped nations, fueling commerce and mobility. By the 1950s, the United States interstate system transformed the landscape, stitching cities and states together through concrete veins of progress. By the 2020s, advanced road networks circle the globe, monitored by digital sensors and guided by satellite navigation. Smart highways manage traffic flow, detect hazards, and communicate with vehicles in real time. What began as dusty paths has evolved into intelligent infrastructure. Roads are no longer static, they respond, adapt, and even generate power through solar paving. Yet, every modern freeway still echoes the pioneering roots of a century ago. The open road remains a symbol of freedom, progress, and the human drive to connect places and people across the world. 14. Public transit, streetcars to modern subway systems and ride-sharing apps. Public transit in the early 20th century relied heavily on streetcars and buses powered by coal or diesel. Cities buzzed with clanging trolleys, weaving passengers through narrow streets. For many, it was the lifeline between work and home. The post-war years brought subways, rail expansions, and the rise of urban commuting. By the 2020s, the transit landscape is an intricate web of technology. Contactless payments, real-time tracking, and mobile scheduling apps redefine convenience. Ride-sharing platforms blur the line between private and public transport, offering flexibility once unthinkable. Electric buses and autonomous shuttles promise cleaner, quieter cities. Yet, even as mobility becomes smarter, the core goal remains unchanged: to move people efficiently, safely, and affordably. From steel tracks to smartphone screens, public transit reflects society's evolution toward connectivity and sustainability, carrying forward a century-old dream of accessible travel for all. 15. Fuel and energy. Leaded gasoline versus renewable energy. In the early decades of the automobile age, fuel meant one thing: gasoline. Leaded fuels powered progress, but at a hidden cost to health and the environment. Smoky engines and gas stations defined the rhythm of modern life. By the late 20th century, awareness grew of pollution's toll, pushing innovation toward cleaner alternatives. The 21st century marks a pivotal shift. Renewable energy now drives both vehicles and homes. Solar panels glint on rooftops, wind turbines spin across fields, and electric grids grow smarter every year. Cars once dependent on fossil fuels now run silently on lithium batteries. Hydrogen and biofuels hint at even greener futures. The journey from leaded fumes to clean power reveals humanity's capacity to learn, adapt, and reinvent. Energy is no longer just a source of motion. It has become a moral and environmental responsibility, proof that progress and preservation can coexist when guided by conscience. 16. Train journeys, steam locomotives to high-speed rail. The first steam locomotives of the 19th century chugged through landscapes like living beasts, spewing clouds of smoke and sparks. They connected distant towns and carried dreams of adventure and progress. By the mid-20th century, diesel and electric trains replaced steam, offering smoother, faster travel. Railways became the arteries of modern civilization. In the 2020s, trains have evolved into engineering marvels. High-speed rail networks in Japan, France, and China propel passengers at over 300 kilometers per hour, gliding silently through tunnels and countrysides. Luxury cabins and Wi-Fi now accompany efficiency. Trains that once symbolized industrial might now embody sustainability and innovation. Maglev technology promises near-flight speeds without fossil fuels, redefining land travel for the future. The rhythmic clatter of wheels may have softened, but the spirit of the journey endures: romantic, efficient, and timelessly human. 17. Roadside culture: diners and motels versus drive-through and boutique travel. In the golden age of the 1950s, the American highway was lined with neon-lit diners, mom-and-pop motels, and postcard-perfect rest stops. Families embarked on cross-country trips, guided by road maps and wanderlust. These stops offered more than food or lodging; they created memories. By the 2020s, roadside culture has transformed. Drive-through chains serve meals in minutes, while travelers book boutique hotels and Airbnbs with a swipe. The once uniform roadside is now curated and global, catering to diverse tastes. Vintage diners survive as nostalgic icons, their jukeboxes echoing an era of simpler journeys. Yet, even amid digital booking and fast travel, the essence of the road trip remains. It is not about the destination but the stories along the way. From greasy spoons to gourmet pit stops, roadside culture continues to mirror our evolving relationship with freedom, comfort, and the open road. 18. Maps versus GPS. Folded paper atlases versus digital navigation. Before satellites guided our way, travelers relied on paper maps, beautifully printed but easily torn, often outdated, and always demanding a good sense of direction. Family road trips meant unfolding enormous atlases across dashboards, tracing routes with fingertips, and sometimes getting lost. In the 21st century, digital navigation has erased uncertainty. GPS systems and smartphone apps offer real-time updates, alternate routes, and even voice guidance. Getting lost has become nearly impossible, though spontaneity has faded with it. While modern navigation is fast and reliable, it has replaced the art of exploration with algorithmic precision. Yet, nostalgia persists for the tactile act of unfolding a map and plotting one's path. From compass to constellation, from paper to pixels, our journey through navigation technology mirrors our constant desire to know where we are and to find our way home. 19. Ship travel: ocean liners to luxury cruises. In the early 20th century, ship travel was both an adventure and a necessity. Ocean liners like the Titanic or the Queen Mary symbolized prestige and progress, carrying passengers across vast oceans in style and splendor. For immigrants, these voyages represented new beginnings. For the wealthy, they were floating palaces. As air travel rose in the mid-century, ships transformed from transportation to recreation. By the 2020s, cruise liners have become floating cities, complete with theaters, restaurants, and theme parks. Sustainability now guides design, with cleaner fuels and waste reduction shaping the next wave of maritime innovation. Yet, even with all its luxury, the romance of the sea endures. The sound of waves, the endless horizon, and the thrill of departure remain timeless. Ship travel, once a means of crossing, is now a celebration of the journey itself. 20. Travel accessibility. From a privilege of the few to a convenience for many. A century ago, travel was an aspiration reserved for the privileged. Tickets were costly, and passports were rare. The ordinary person's world rarely extended beyond their hometown. Over the decades, however, innovations in transport, rising incomes, and global connectivity transformed mobility into a common experience. By the 2020s, low-cost airlines, high-speed trains, and digital booking platforms make travel accessible to billions. Students study abroad, families vacation across continents, and retirees explore distant lands. Technology bridges language barriers and simplifies logistics once deemed impossible. Yet, this democratization of travel also brings new responsibilities towards sustainability, cultural respect, and environmental impact. What was once luxury is now routine, but its essence remains the same: curiosity, connection, and discovery. From the rare voyages of the few to the adventures of the many, humanity's greatest journey has been the freedom to move, learn, and belong anywhere on Earth. 21. Telephones, rotary dials versus smartphones. In the mid-20th century, the rotary dial telephone was a household treasure. Calls were planned, voices carried through static, and phone numbers were memorized or written in little address books. The phone was anchored to one spot, often the kitchen wall, where families shared messages and gossip. Privacy was rare, and every ring drew excitement. Fast forward to the 2020s, and communication has become seamless, mobile, and instant. Smartphones now serve as cameras, computers, calendars, and companions. A device that once connected two people by voice now links billions through apps, video calls, and social media. With touchscreens replacing dials, conversations have shifted from spoken words to emojis and texts. Yet, something nostalgic lingers about the deliberate act of dialing a number, hearing the mechanical clicks, and waiting for a real voice on the other end. The telephone's journey from rotary to smart encapsulates a broader human evolution, from patience and anticipation to immediacy and constant connection. 22. Postal mail versus email. Waiting weeks versus instant replies. A letter once represented both effort and emotion. In the early 20th century, postal mail connected families across oceans, its paper carrying the warmth of human touch. Each envelope held stories, sealed with anticipation that could take weeks to reach its reader. The postman's arrival was an event, marking communication as something cherished and rare. By contrast, the 2020s usher in the era of instant replies. Emails, messages, and notifications blur the line between conversation and overload. Words fly across continents in seconds, often forgotten as quickly as they arrive. The intimacy of handwriting has been replaced by the efficiency of typing. Yet, despite digital dominance, the charm of tangible mail persists. Wedding invitations, handwritten notes, and postcards remind us of connection's slower rhythm. From ink and envelopes to keyboards and screens, communication has traded patience for speed. But emotion still finds its way between sender and receiver, whether by hand or by code. 23. Radios to podcasts, spoken word, storytelling evolving through decades. In the 1930s, families gathered around radios to hear news, dramas, and comedies that painted pictures in sound. The voice of a favorite broadcaster or storyteller could unite an entire nation. Radio was imagination's stage, every word creating worlds unseen. As television and the internet emerged, radio seemed destined to fade. Yet, storytelling adapted. In the 2020s, podcasts have revived the art of spoken word for a new generation. Listeners now stream stories, interviews, and discussions anytime, anywhere. What once required tuning a dial now happens with a single tap on a phone. Podcasts have democratized broadcasting, giving anyone with a microphone and an idea a global platform. From wartime reports to long-form conversations, the essence remains the same. The human voice, weaving connection through sound. The transition from static airwaves to digital streams proves that while technology changes, our love for stories spoken aloud never dies. 24. Television's birth and streaming revolution. Television's arrival in the 1940s transformed entertainment. Black and white screens flickered with live broadcasts, news anchors, and family sitcoms that brought the world into living rooms. It was a communal experience. Families arranged furniture around the glowing box, sharing laughter and awe. The decades brought color, cable, and global networks that shaped culture and imagination. By the 2020s, the revolution had gone digital. Streaming services like Netflix, Disney+, and countless others offer on-demand content, personalized and portable. Viewers no longer wait for scheduled programs. They binge-watch entire series in a weekend. The television evolved from furniture to app, from collective ritual to solitary escape. Yet, both eras share one truth: screens mirror society. Whether through grainy newsreels or high-definition dramas, television and streaming reflect humanity's endless desire to see, feel, and belong. What began as a shared window has become a boundless portal to stories without end. 25. Cameras and photography. Film rolls to digital filters. Photography once required patience and precision. In the 1950s, capturing a single moment meant threading film, adjusting focus, and waiting days for development. Each photo was deliberate, every click of the shutter carried weight. Albums filled with memories, grainy yet precious. With the digital age came transformation. By the 2020s, smartphones and mirrorless cameras capture thousands of images in seconds, enhanced by filters and instantly shared worldwide. The once limited art of photography has become universal expression. However, with abundance comes impermanence. Images stored in clouds instead of boxes, likes replacing tactile prints. Still, photography's essence remains, the desire to preserve fleeting beauty. Whether framed in sepia tones or filtered in neon light, a photograph continues to whisper the same truth: it matters because it freezes time. 26. Newspapers to online media. For generations, The morning newspaper was a daily ritual. The crisp rustle of paper, the scent of ink, and the headlines that shaped public opinion. Newsboys shouted updates on street corners, and editors held immense influence. By the early 21st century, the internet redefined journalism. Articles now publish in real time, updated by the minute, consumed on screens instead of paper. While access expanded, attention spans shrank. Online media democratized voices but also blurred the line between fact and opinion. The once linear rhythm of morning editions became a 24-hour cycle of breaking alerts. Yet, journalism endures transformed, not erased. The newspaper's legacy lives in every digital feed and push notification, reminding us that while the medium changes, truth and storytelling remain the press's eternal purpose. 27. Typewriters to laptops. The rhythmic clack of typewriter keys once echoed through offices and homes. In the mid-20th century, writers composed with ink ribbons and carbon copies, their errors corrected by patience and whiteout. Each document bore the trace of human effort, every smudge a mark of authenticity. The personal computer and later the laptop revolutionized writing. By the 2020s, sleek devices with glowing screens replaced mechanical arms and inked letters. Words flow faster, editing is effortless, and storage infinite. Writers now carry libraries in their backpacks, creating from cafes, trains, or mountaintops. Yet, nostalgia lingers for the tactile resistance of typewriter keys, a slower, more intentional rhythm. From type bars to touchscreens, the evolution of writing tools reflects humanity's ongoing dance between creation and convenience. 28. Libraries to the internet. For centuries, libraries stood as temples of knowledge. Rows of books, the scent of paper, and the quiet reverence for learning defined them. In the mid-20th century, card catalogues guided readers to wisdom preserved in ink. The dawn of the internet in the late 20th century transformed access to information. Today, search engines answer questions in milliseconds, and digital archives replace dusty shelves. The 2020s generation holds more data in their pockets than libraries once contained in buildings. Yet, while the internet democratizes knowledge, it also disperses focused depth traded for speed. Libraries endure as sanctuaries of reflection, adapting with ebooks and digital catalogues. From whispering halls to glowing screens, humanity's pursuit of understanding remains timeless, though its pathways now span both shelves and servers. 29. Music formats, vinyl to streaming platforms. Music once spun on vinyl, warm, crackling records that demanded care and ritual. In the 1960s and 70s, turntables and cassette tapes defined listening culture. Each song had weight, each album told a story. Compact discs followed, then digital downloads, and finally streaming platforms revolutionized the experience. By the 2020s, anyone with a smartphone could access millions of songs instantly. Playlists replaced record collections, and algorithms became curators. Yet, vinyl's resurgence proves nostalgia never fades. Listeners still crave the tangible beauty of analog sound. The journey from grooves to gigabytes mirrors our shifting relationship with music, from ownership to access, from patience to immediacy. What remains constant is the universal rhythm that unites generations through melody and emotion. 30. News delivery speed next day, headlines to live updates. In the mid-20th century, yesterday's news arrived today. Morning papers summarized the world, and evening broadcasts recounted the day's events. People waited, trusting time and editorial judgment. By the 2020s, that rhythm shattered. News now breaks by the second. Tweets, live streams, and instant notifications flood our screens. Speed has become both marvel and menace. While information travels globally in moments, accuracy often lags behind. The art of reflection has been replaced by reaction, yet the desire to know persists. The evolution from next-day headlines to live updates defines our era's heartbeat, faster, louder, and constantly in motion. In a world where news never sleeps, truth remains the rarest headline of all. 31. Advertising painted billboards to algorithmic ads. In the early 20th century, advertising was bold, colorful, and tangible. Painted billboards lined highways, hand-drawn posters filled shop windows, and catchy jingles played on radio stations. Each slogan aimed to charm passers-by with creativity and persuasion. The message was universal, everyone saw the same ad. By the 2020s, Advertising has become deeply personal and data-driven. Algorithms track clicks, preferences, and purchase history, tailoring promotions to individual screens. Social media influencers sell lifestyles as much as products, and brands compete for attention measured in seconds. The artistry of persuasion remains, but its reach is now microscopic and global at once. From brushstrokes to pixels, the journey of advertising reflects society's evolution, from shared spectacle to individualized suggestion, a mirror of our desires, projected through code. 32. Work communication telegrams to Zoom calls. In the early 20th century, telegrams carried urgent messages across great distances, their words counted and abbreviated for cost. Offices relied on typewriters, letters, and face-to-face meetings. Communication was formal, deliberate, and often slow. The telephone, and later the fax, bridged gaps, but distance still shaped how people worked. By the 2020s, digital tools have dissolved those barriers entirely. Video calls, instant messaging, and cloud collaboration enable teams to connect from anywhere on Earth. Platforms like Zoom, Slack, and Microsoft Teams define the rhythm of modern work. Conversations once confined to boardrooms now unfold across time zones and devices. While technology enhances efficiency, it also blurs boundaries between office and home. From telegram wires to virtual screens, communication has evolved from delayed necessity to instant expectation, an unbroken thread of connection rewoven by innovation. 33. Journalism and public trust. From family newspapers to social media, skepticism. Decades ago, journalism was a cornerstone of public life. Families trusted their local papers and nightly news anchors to deliver balanced, verified information. Editors acted as gatekeepers of truth, guided by integrity and accountability. In the 21st century, the landscape has fragmented. The rise of social media and online platforms democratized voices but also diluted trust. Anyone can publish, but not everyone verifies. The flood of misinformation has blurred the line between news and opinion. Yet, the heart of journalism, truth-seeking, persists. Independent reporters, fact-checkers, and digital watchdogs strive to uphold credibility in a chaotic age. The shift from ink to algorithm challenges readers to think critically, to question, and to seek sources beyond the scroll. From family newspapers to global networks, journalism's greatest test remains not in telling the story but in earning belief. 34. Privacy and information. Locked diaries versus open data. In the mid-20th century, privacy was tangible. A locked diary, a closed letter, a private conversation whispered behind doors. Personal information stayed personal, guarded by trust and physical boundaries. By the 2020s, data has become a new currency. Every click, search, and photo shared contributes to an invisible digital profile. Social networks, apps, and corporations collect details once considered intimate. While connectivity empowers, it also exposes. Privacy, once a right, now demands vigilance. Yet, this transparency has benefits: greater accountability, collaboration, and innovation. The challenge lies in balance, to share without surrender, to connect without losing oneself. From diaries to databases, the meaning of privacy has transformed from protection of secrets to management of visibility in a world that never stops watching. 35. Language and expression. Formal letter, writing to emojis. In the past, communication was artful. Letters opened with salutations, sentences flowed with elegance, and closing signatures carried warmth. The mid-20th century valued eloquence and grammar as reflections of respect. By the 2020s, communication has grown faster, shorter, and more visual. Emojis, GIFs, and memes express tone and emotion in milliseconds. Digital language blends words with symbols, reshaping expression into a global shorthand. While some lament the loss of formality, others see creativity in this evolution language that adapts to speed and diversity. A single emoji can convey affection, humor, or empathy without words. From quills and ink to screens and icons, expression remains the soul of connection, proof that even as language changes, emotion always finds its voice. 36. Men's clothing. Suits and hats to athleisure. In the early 20th century, a man's wardrobe was defined by formality. Suits, ties, and hats were daily attire, symbols of discipline and respectability. Work, travel, and leisure each had their distinct uniforms. By the late 20th century, cultural revolutions loosened collars and shed rigidity. The 2020s celebrate comfort and function, athleisure, sneakers, and minimalist designs dominate wardrobes. Tailored suits remain, but often for choice rather than expectation. Modern men mix formality with expression, valuing versatility over conformity. Fashion now reflects identity instead of status. From starch collars to stretch fabrics, the evolution of menswear mirrors broader social shifts from societal uniformity to personal authenticity. 37. Women's fashion. From corsets to comfort wear. A century ago, women's fashion was bound by structure corsets, long skirts, and expectations of decorum. Beauty was defined by restraint. The liberation movements of the 20th century unraveled these constraints, replacing them with freedom and self-expression. By the 2020s, comfort reigned supreme. Yoga pants, sneakers, and gender-fluid silhouettes dominate global runways. Sustainability joins style as a new ideal. Women now dress for empowerment rather than approval. Fashion reflects independence, movement, and identity. From boned corsets to breathable fabrics, every stitch tells a story of progress, a journey from containment to confidence, from conformity to choice. 38. Materials and sustainability. Wool and cotton versus synthetics and eco-fabrics. In the early days of industrial fashion, wool, cotton, and silk were the cornerstones of clothing. Durable and natural, they connected people to the earth's rhythms. The mid-20th century introduced synthetics like nylon and polyester, cheap, colorful, and revolutionary. Yet, mass production brought environmental costs. By the 2020s, fashion faces a reckoning. Designers and consumers alike turn toward eco-fabrics, recycled fibers, organic cotton, bamboo blends, and lab-grown materials. Sustainability is no longer niche, it's necessity. Technology now weaves ethics into aesthetics, proving beauty need not harm the planet. From natural beginnings to synthetic dominance and back again, the fabric of fashion reflects humanity's evolving consciousness thread by thread. 39. Hairstyles and grooming barbershops to digital style influencers. In the mid-20th century, grooming was personal yet local. Men visited neighborhood barbers, women spent hours in salons, and styles were defined by magazines and celebrities. Trends moved slowly, shaped by word of mouth and community. By the 2020s, grooming is global and digital. Social media influencers, tutorials, and virtual try-on apps shape how people style themselves. Barbers and stylists now share their artistry online, inspiring millions worldwide. Personal care has become an expression of identity rather than conformity. From pomade and curlers to clippers and ring lights, grooming has evolved into a creative dialogue between self and society, where every haircut, color, or beard becomes a statement of individuality. 40. Jewelry and accessories. Sentimental keepsakes to fast fashion. Jewelry once carried deep meaning, heirlooms passed through generations, symbols of love, faith, or status. A single ring could embody a lifetime of memory. The late 20th century introduced mass production, turning adornment into trend. By the 2020s, fast fashion offers endless choices at minimal cost, driven by social media and celebrity culture. Yet, a counter-movement grows. Handcrafted, ethical, and personal pieces regain value. Consumers seek connection over consumption. Jewelry's essence endures, the desire to decorate, to express, to remember. Whether carved from gold or crafted from recycled metal, adornment remains humanity's quiet declaration of beauty and meaning. 41. Youth culture absent in the 1930s, dominant by the 2020s. In the 1930s, youth had little cultural power. Young people worked early, dressed like adults, and followed societal norms. Post-war prosperity in the 1950s changed everything. Teenagers gained independence, music, and spending power. Youth became a force that shaped fashion, art, and politics. By the 2020s, youth culture dominates the world. Social media amplifies their voices, trends, and activism. They challenge traditions, redefine identity, and drive innovation. What was once absence has become influence. The young no longer inherit culture, they create it. From jazz halls to TikTok feeds, The pulse of every generation beats strongest in its youth. 42. Makeup trends: modesty versus bold self-expression. Makeup once symbolized refinement, subtle rouge, soft lipstick, and restraint. In the early 20th century, beauty standards favored modesty and uniformity. The later decades, however, witnessed rebellion. The 1960s brought bold eyeliner. The 1980s celebrated color and experimentation. By the 2020s, makeup is art and identity. Social media tutorials, inclusive brands, and gender-neutral palettes redefine beauty as empowerment. Faces become canvases, not masks. Modesty and boldness coexist, each stroke a statement of freedom. From powder compacts to digital filters, makeup's evolution reflects more than style. It tells the story of confidence, diversity, and self-love. 43. Music and dance swing to hip-hop and digital beats. In the 1930s and 40s, swing and jazz ruled the dance halls, uniting communities through rhythm and joy. The mid-century gave birth to rock and roll, rebellion in sound. The later decades introduced disco, punk, and pop, each era a soundtrack to its social mood. By the 2020s, digital technology has transformed creation and performance. Hip-hop, electronic music, and streaming platforms dominate global culture. Dancers move not just on stages but on screens, their videos shared across continents. Yet, despite the shifts in beat and medium, music and dance remain expressions of the same human heartbeat, emotion in motion, timeless and ever-evolving. 44. Popular pastimes: community dances versus streaming marathons. A century ago, leisure meant gathering church socials, town dances, and picnics. Entertainment was shared, physical and local. People found joy in company. The television era brought private leisure, but the 2020s sealed the shift. Streaming marathons, video games, and virtual experiences define downtime. Entertainment is now solitary, yet connected through screens and fandoms. The sense of togetherness has moved online, where millions watch, chat, and react in digital harmony. From dance halls to living rooms, from records to recommendations, pastimes have evolved, but the pursuit of joy remains humanity's universal rhythm. 45. Generational expression: tradition versus individuality. Every generation redefines itself against the last. The early 20th century valued conformity, respect for elders, and inherited customs. Youth spoke the language of duty. As decades unfolded, individuality became the anthem. By the 2020s, identity is self-authored, fluid, diverse, and unapologetic. Fashion, art, and belief no longer follow lineage but personal conviction. Technology amplifies these voices, turning differences into movements. Yet, the tension between tradition and individuality endures, shaping families and societies alike. From shared heritage to personal narrative, humanity's story evolves through contrast, each generation rewriting what it means to belong, to believe, and to be. 46. Employment landscape: manual labor to digital freelancing. In the early 20th century, most workers earned their living through physical labor. Fields, factories, and workshops hummed with the rhythm of industry. Work was tangible, measured in sweat, effort, and hours spent on the ground. A job meant stability, hierarchy, and often a lifelong commitment to one employer. By contrast, the 2020s have reshaped the meaning of work entirely. The rise of the internet and digital platforms birthed a global freelancing economy, where individuals sell skills rather than time. Writers, designers, coders, and consultants connect with clients across continents, often from the comfort of their homes. The traditional office has given way to co-working spaces, gig platforms, and remote collaborations. Flexibility has replaced permanence, and autonomy has become as valuable as income. Yet, with freedom comes uncertainty, job security, and benefits often vanish in this new economy. The employment landscape continues to evolve, blending passion with precarity. From the clang of machinery to the click of keyboards, labor has shifted from the physical to the digital, reflecting a world where productivity is measured not by presence, but by output, creativity, and adaptability. 47. Factories to offices. At the dawn of the 20th century, the heartbeat of the economy was industrial. Smoke rose from factories, and assembly lines defined modern progress. Workers specialized in repetitive tasks, often enduring long hours and harsh conditions. The factory was both a symbol of opportunity and exploitation, a place where human endurance met the demands of mass production. By the mid-century, economies in the Western world transitioned towards service and management industries. The white-collar revolution began. Men and women traded overalls for suits and typewriters. The office became the new factory of thought and coordination. By the 2020s, this transformation reached its digital zenith. Computers, cloud systems, and virtual offices blurred boundaries between workplace and home. The modern office may exist entirely online, where teams collaborate across time zones through screens and shared documents. Productivity tools have replaced punch clocks, and flexibility has replaced uniformity. The evolution from factories to offices mirrors society's shift from manufacturing goods to managing ideas, an economy no longer powered by muscle, but by information. Yet, both settings share one truth. Work, in all its forms, remains humanity's most defining act of creation. 48. Minimum wage growth. When the first minimum wage laws emerged in the early 20th century, they were revolutionary. Born out of labor movements demanding dignity and fairness, these laws sought to ensure that no worker's effort went undervalued. The concept began modestly, with wages that barely sustained a basic living. Yet, it represented a moral shift, the idea that human labor carried inherent worth. Over the decades, governments adjusted these standards in response to inflation, productivity, and social pressure. The 1930s Great Depression underscored the urgency of economic protection, while post-war prosperity raised expectations. By the 2020s, minimum wage debates had become global. Some nations embraced living wage models, while others struggled to balance affordability for businesses with fairness for workers. Automation and the gig economy complicated the issue further, blurring the line between employment and contract work. The story of minimum wage is one of progress and paradox. As societies grow wealthier, equality remains elusive, yet the principle endures that every worker deserves compensation that honors not just survival, but dignity. From pennies per hour to digital paychecks, the pursuit of fair wages remains one of modern civilization's most enduring moral questions. 49. Work hours and rights labor movements to remote work. In the early 20th century, work consumed life. 12-hour shifts, 6-day weeks, and unsafe conditions were common realities for laborers. Factories exploited human endurance until collective resistance sparked the birth of labor unions. Through strikes, protests, and negotiation, workers fought for fair treatment, culminating in the 8-hour workday, paid leave, and safety laws. The mid-century brought further reforms: pensions, healthcare, and job security. But as industries digitized, the nature of work evolved once again. The 2020s introduced flexibility through remote work and hybrid schedules. Technology untethered workers from physical offices, offering autonomy but also blurring personal boundaries. The right to disconnect became as vital as the right to rest. Labor movements of the past secured physical safety. Modern ones seek mental balance and digital fairness. The global workforce now negotiates freedom within constant connectivity. From factory floors to video calls, the struggle for humane working conditions continues, reshaped by innovation, yet driven by the same timeless pursuit: dignity, equity, and the balance between labor and life. 50. Economic crises, the Great Depression versus global recessions. The Great Depression of the 1930s remains etched in collective memory as an era of despair. Banks collapsed, unemployment soared, and breadlines symbolized economic paralysis. Families bartered goods, migrated for work, and clung to hope amid scarcity. Governments responded with public works and social reforms, redefining the role of the state in stabilizing economies. Decades later, the world faced new financial upheavals: the oil crises of the 1970s, the Great Recession of 2008, and the pandemic-induced downturns of the 2020s. Unlike the past, these modern recessions unfolded within a globally interconnected economy, where shocks in one region rippled worldwide. Technology accelerated both collapse and recovery. Digital trading, remote work, and online markets softened some blows, yet inequality widened. While the Great Depression birthed the welfare state, modern crises reveal new vulnerabilities: debt, automation, and environmental strain. History teaches that economies are not merely systems of numbers, but reflections of resilience and adaptation. From soup kitchens to stimulus checks, humanity continues to learn that recovery requires not just money, but trust, solidarity, and reinvention. 51. Gender in the workforce. In the early 1900s, the workplace was overwhelmingly male. Women's labor, often unpaid or undervalued, centered on domestic spheres. The world wars changed that narrative. As men went to battle, women entered factories, offices, and fields, proving their equal capability. Yet, when peace returned, many were forced back into traditional roles. The feminist movements of the 1960s and 70s reignited the struggle for equality, demanding equal pay, maternity rights, and professional recognition. By the 2020s, gender inclusion became both a moral and economic imperative. Women now lead corporations, research labs, and nations. Yet, disparities persist. Wage gaps, glass ceilings, and care responsibilities remain unevenly distributed. The modern workforce also embraces broader understandings of gender identity, expanding the conversation beyond binary terms. True equality requires more than participation. It demands structural fairness. From secretaries to CEOs, from stereotypes to empowerment, the evolution of gender in the workforce reflects society's ongoing journey toward inclusivity, where talent, not gender, defines worth. 52. Child labor to education focus. A century ago, child labor was tragically common. Young boys and girls toiled in factories, mines, and farms, their hands small but essential to production. Poverty forced families to trade education for survival. Reformers and activists fought to end these injustices, arguing that childhood should belong to learning, not labor. Gradually, governments enacted compulsory education laws and banned underage work. The mid-20th century marked a turning point. Schools replaced workshops, and textbooks replaced tools. By the 2020s, global initiatives aim to ensure education for all children, though inequalities remain in many regions. Digital technology has expanded learning access, connecting rural students to global classrooms. Yet, economic hardship and conflict still push some children into informal work. The transition from labor to learning is one of humanity's greatest achievements, reflecting compassion and foresight. Where once a child's worth was measured in productivity, it is now celebrated in potential, the power to think, dream, and shape the future. 53. Unions and corporate culture. Labor unions emerged from necessity. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, workers united to challenge exploitation, demanding safety, fair pay, and respect. Strikes and protests forged solidarity across industries. The mid-century marked the golden age of union power, shaping wages, benefits, and workplace standards. However, globalization and automation in the late 20th century weakened their influence. Corporations grew larger, more flexible, and less dependent on traditional labor. By the 2020s, the conversation shifted from confrontation to collaboration. Some companies adopted corporate culture strategies emphasizing well-being, inclusion, and engagement as a new form of worker relations. Yet, rising inequality has revived labor activism in digital industries. Tech workers, gig drivers, and warehouse employees form virtual unions, using social media to organize. From factory floors to digital platforms, the spirit of collective voice endures. Whether through picket lines or online petitions, workers continue to remind the world that human dignity remains the foundation of every enterprise. 54. Small business evolution. Small businesses have always been the backbone of communities. In the early 20th century, family-run stores, cobblers, and grocers formed the social and economic fabric of towns. Their survival depended on reputation, trust, and craftsmanship. The rise of mass production and retail chains in the mid-century challenged this tradition, pushing many local shops into decline. Yet, entrepreneurship adapted. By the 2020s, technology revived small business potential. Online platforms allow artisans, startups, and niche brands to reach global audiences. Social media marketing and e-commerce have replaced window displays. Innovation and personalization distinguish small businesses from corporate giants. However, challenges persist. Competition, regulation, and economic instability test resilience. Still, small businesses embody creativity and community. From corner stores to digital storefronts, they remain symbols of independence and innovation, proving that in every era, personal vision and passion can thrive even amid industrial giants. 55. Automation and artificial intelligence. The Industrial Revolution mechanized labor, but the digital revolution is redefining intelligence itself. Early automation replaced muscle with machines. 21st century artificial intelligence replaces routine with reasoning. Robots assemble cars, algorithms write reports, and chatbots assist customers. The promise is efficiency, the fear is redundancy. As AI learns to analyze, predict, and create, society faces profound questions. What roles will humans play in an automated world? Yet, history suggests adaptation. Just as tractors transformed farming and computers transformed offices, AI may transform creativity, healthcare, and education. Ethical frameworks now emerge to ensure fairness and accountability in algorithmic decisions. By the 2020s, AI has become not just a tool, but a collaborator augmenting human intelligence rather than replacing it. From assembly lines to neural networks, automation's evolution challenges us to redefine purpose. The future of work may not be less human, but more humane, where machines handle routine and humans focus on imagination, empathy, and innovation. 56. Classroom design, chalkboards to interactive screens. In the early 20th century, classrooms were simple, disciplined spaces. Rows of wooden desks faced a chalkboard where a single teacher lectured to attentive students. Learning was unidirectional. Knowledge flowed from teacher to pupil, reinforced by repetition and memorization. The smell of chalk and ink defined education's physicality. By the mid-century, overhead projectors and film strips added visual flair, yet the basic setup remained unchanged. Fast forward to the 2020s, and classrooms have transformed into dynamic, technology-enhanced environments. Interactive whiteboards, tablets, and digital projectors invite participation rather than passive listening. Desks are arranged in clusters to encourage collaboration, and virtual classrooms connect learners across continents. The pandemic accelerated this evolution, merging home and school through online platforms. Education now emphasizes engagement, adaptability, and inclusivity, values reflected in modern classroom design. Where once a single chalkboard guided learning, now a universe of screens, apps, and interactive simulations nurtures creativity. The classroom has evolved from a place of instruction to a hub of exploration, proving that while tools change, the pursuit of understanding remains timeless. 57. Access to education, rural one-room schools to online universities. A century ago, education was a privilege, not a guarantee. Rural communities often relied on one-room schoolhouses, where a lone teacher instructed children of all ages with limited resources. Distance, poverty, and gender often determined who could attend. As the 20th century advanced, governments recognized education as a fundamental right. Compulsory schooling laws, scholarships, and transportation expanded access. By the late century, universities multiplied, drawing students from diverse backgrounds. In the 2020s, technology revolutionized accessibility once again. Online universities and digital learning platforms allow anyone, anywhere, to study at their own pace. A smartphone now connects learners to professors, libraries, and global peers. Yet, inequalities persist. Digital divides, language barriers, and socio-economic challenges continue to limit opportunity. Still, progress is undeniable. Education has evolved from a local privilege to a global endeavor. From one-room schoolhouses to worldwide classrooms, humanity's greatest equalizer continues to expand its reach, proving that curiosity knows no borders. 58. Cost of tuition, affordable basics to student debt. In the early decades of the 20th century, higher education was accessible to few but relatively inexpensive. Public universities and scholarships provided opportunities for advancement without overwhelming debt. As demand for education rose, so too did costs. The post-war boom of the 1950s and 60s saw universities expand, but by the late 20th century, tuition prices began to soar. In the 2020s, student debt has become a defining issue of young adulthood. Millions graduate burdened by loans that shape their financial futures. Rising administrative costs, reduced public funding, and the commercialization of education have turned learning into a costly investment. Yet, alternatives emerge. Online courses, vocational programs, and government reforms aim to restore balance. The debate over tuition reflects broader questions of fairness and access. Should education be a public good or a private responsibility? From affordable basics to financial burdens, the journey of tuition costs mirrors society's shifting values between opportunity and profit, aspiration and affordability. 59. Reading culture: print classics to digital audiobooks. In the early 20th century, reading was a ritual. Books were cherished possessions, passed down through generations. Libraries served as sanctuaries of knowledge, and literature shaped minds and morals. Families gathered around fires to read aloud, savoring every page. The mid-century brought paperbacks, making reading accessible to the masses. By the 2020s, digital transformation reshaped this ancient habit. E-books, tablets, and audiobooks bring entire libraries to one's pocket. Stories now accompany commutes, workouts, and chores through narration. Social media fosters global reading communities, where recommendations spread faster than print ever could. Yet, nostalgia for paper endures the tactile pleasure of turning pages, the scent of old books, the intimacy of print. The act of reading has not diminished but diversified. From silent libraries to streaming libraries, the written word continues to evolve, proving that while formats change, humanity's love for stories remains eternal. 60. Scientific discovery pace: decades of change condensed into years. A century ago, scientific progress moved at a deliberate pace. Discoveries required years of experimentation, correspondence, and peer review. The early 20th century witnessed monumental breakthroughs: relativity, quantum mechanics, antibiotics, but each unfolded slowly, shared through journals and conferences. By contrast, the 2020s condensed decades of innovation into mere years. The internet accelerates collaboration, artificial intelligence processes data at unimaginable speeds, and global crises spur rapid advancements. The swift development of vaccines, renewable energy systems, and space exploration demonstrates a new rhythm of discovery. Yet, this velocity poses challenges: ethical dilemmas, misinformation, and the pressure to innovate without pause. The pace of progress demands equally fast reflection. From handwritten lab notes to real-time global databases, science has evolved from isolated endeavor to collective intelligence. Humanity now stands in an age where ideas travel faster than light, once seemed a testament to curiosity's unending drive and technology's expanding reach. 61. Women in academia. In the early 20th century, women's presence in academia was rare and often resisted. Those who pursued education faced barriers: limited access, social stigma, and institutional bias. A handful of trailblazers, such as Marie Curie and Florence Bascom, broke through these walls, paving the way for future generations. The mid-century brought steady progress as universities opened doors to women in greater numbers. By the late 20th century, feminist movements demanded equality in research, tenure, and leadership. The 2020s reflect both victory and unfinished work. Women now lead departments, conduct groundbreaking research, and inspire global mentorship. Yet, disparities remain in pay, recognition, and representation in certain fields like engineering and physics. Digital platforms and international collaboration, however, have empowered women scholars to share voices once silenced. From the margins to the mainstream, women in academia have reshaped the pursuit of knowledge itself, infusing it with empathy, diversity, and balance. Their legacy is not just in research, but in reimagining what wisdom looks like when every voice is heard. 62. Homework and technology. Homework in the early 20th century was straightforward: paper, pencils, and quiet study under dim lamplight. Parents offered help, but information came mostly from textbooks and classroom notes. The process encouraged patience, memory, and discipline. As the decades passed, education technologies evolved from encyclopedias and calculators to computers and the internet. By the 2020s, homework has entered the digital age. Students collaborate in virtual spaces, use online tools for research, and submit assignments through learning portals. Artificial intelligence even assists with feedback and tutoring. While convenience and access have improved, challenges arise: distractions, plagiarism, and unequal access to devices. Teachers now balance technology with critical thinking, ensuring students learn to analyze rather than copy. Homework has shifted from rote repetition to creative problem-solving. From handwritten essays to digital submissions, technology has redefined not just how students learn, but how they think, question, and connect knowledge across an ever-expanding world. 63. Access to information encyclopedias versus search engines. In the early 20th century, knowledge resided in libraries, printed encyclopedias, and the minds of scholars. Gathering information required time, travel, and dedication. The encyclopedia was a household treasure, a symbol of intellectual aspiration. By the late century, compact discs and databases began to digitize knowledge. Then came the Internet revolution. Search engines, emerging in the 1990s and dominating by the 2020s, transformed access entirely. A single query now retrieves answers in seconds from billions of sources. The challenge has shifted from scarcity of information to its overwhelming abundance. Accuracy, bias, and misinformation complicate the pursuit of truth. Yet, democratization of knowledge remains one of humanity's greatest achievements. From thick, leather-bound volumes to glowing screens, the journey of information reflects a profound truth. Curiosity is universal, and technology merely accelerates its reach. The encyclopedia once made us informed. The search engine now demands that we become discerning. 64. Lifelong learning trends. Education once ended with graduation. In the early 20th century, formal learning was a phase of youth, followed by a lifetime of work. Skills acquired early were expected to last decades. As industries evolved and technology accelerated, this notion crumbled. By the late 20th century, professional development courses emerged. By the 2020s, lifelong learning became essential. Online platforms, podcasts, and open universities allow adults to continually upgrade skills or explore new passions. The rise of automation and artificial intelligence demands adaptability, making learning a continuous necessity rather than an optional pursuit. Yet, lifelong learning is not purely economic. It enriches mental health, creativity, and civic engagement. Societies that value constant education foster innovation and resilience. From classrooms to cloud platforms, the classroom of the modern world is boundless, flexible, and permanent. Learning, once an obligation of youth, has become the defining joy and survival skill of adulthood. 65. Literacy and global awareness. At the dawn of the 20th century, literacy was a privilege of the few. Many rural or impoverished communities lacked access to education, and illiteracy limited civic participation. The mid-century saw massive literacy campaigns and post-war reconstruction efforts that spread reading and writing worldwide. By the 2020s, global literacy rates have reached historic highs. Over 80% of humanity can now read and write. Yet, literacy today extends beyond letters. It includes digital, cultural, and media fluency. To be literate means understanding how information shapes the world. The internet connects billions but also exposes societies to misinformation, requiring critical thinking as a new form of literacy. Reading now empowers global awareness, bridging cultures, histories, and ideas. From chalk and slate to screens and smartphones, literacy's purpose has expanded, not just to decode words, but to comprehend the world. Humanity's greatest revolution remains not technological, but intellectual, the power to read, reflect, and reach across borders. 66. Hollywood's Golden Age versus Streaming Era. During Hollywood's Golden Age, from the 1920s to the 1950s, the silver screen ruled the imagination. Studios like MGM, Paramount, and Warner Bros. Crafted glamorous stars and timeless films, controlling every step from production to distribution. Moviegoing was a ritual, a weekly escape into black and white dreams. Audiences dressed elegantly for premieres, and stars were icons shaped by publicists and studio contracts. The system thrived on exclusivity and spectacle. By the 2020s, the entertainment landscape has transformed completely. Streaming platforms like Netflix, Disney+, and Amazon Prime have dethroned the studio monopoly. Audiences consume films instantly, anywhere, and in any language. Algorithms replace studio executives in deciding what trends. Creators now produce independently, and global viewers discover stories beyond Hollywood's reach. Yet, the same spirit endures the desire to tell stories that reflect human experience. The Golden Age had its red carpets. The streaming era has its viral releases. One was ruled by glamour, the other by access. From projectors to pixels, Hollywood's evolution mirrors the world's transition from fantasy to freedom, where the spotlight now shines not just on stars, but on storytellers everywhere. 67. Movie theaters versus home screens. In the mid-20th century, movie theaters were temples of entertainment. Families lined up beneath neon marquees, the scent of popcorn drifting through crowded lobbies. Watching a film was a collective experience, a shared laughter, gasp, or tear under the glow of the silver screen. Theaters symbolized escape and togetherness, especially during the Great Depression and wartime years. The experience extended beyond the movie itself. It was social, sensory, and special. By the 2020s, that sacred ritual has shifted into the living room. Streaming platforms deliver cinematic experiences to personal screens, allowing viewers to pause, rewind, and binge at will. Surround sound systems, smart TVs, and even virtual reality headsets replicate much of the theater's magic. Yet, something intangible, communal awe often feels lost. While convenience and choice define modern viewing, theaters continue to reinvent themselves through luxury seating, immersive sound, and limited events. The magic of cinema persists, adapting to technology and taste. From crowded auditoriums to quiet couches, movie watching remains an art of emotion, whether shared with hundreds or savored alone. 68. Comic strips to cinematic universes. Comic strips of the early 20th century like Superman, Batman, and Flash Gordon were born in ink and imagination. They offered heroes for uncertain times, blending humor, morality, and escapism in daily papers. The 1930s and 40s saw the rise of comic books as cultural symbols, shaping youth ideals and wartime courage. By the 2020s, those same characters now command billion-dollar franchises. Cinematic universes like Marvel and DC connect films, shows, and merchandise in sprawling narratives. Once simple sketches in newspapers, they've become global mythologies, blending art, science, and spectacle. Visual effects and storytelling sophistication allow heroes to live in hyper-real worlds, while fan communities sustain endless engagement. Yet, the essence remains the battle between good and evil, courage and fear, individuality and unity. From black and white panels to digital galaxies, comics transformation reflects humanity's enduring need for stories larger than life. What began as ink on paper now fuels an empire of imagination where every hero, old or new, continues to leap from page to screen. 69. Celebrity culture evolution. In the early 20th century, celebrity was distant and divine. Movie stars like Greta Garbo and Clark Gable lived behind polished studio facades, their private lives carefully crafted illusions. Fame was curated, not captured. The mystique made stars godlike, admired but untouchable. By the late 20th century, tabloids and television interviews began breaking the illusion. Fans hungered for authenticity, and gossip became entertainment. The 2020s ushered in a new reality: celebrity democratized. Social media platforms turned ordinary individuals into global influencers overnight. Fame no longer required studios, it required Wi-Fi, charisma, and timing. Yet, this new accessibility also brought vulnerability, constant scrutiny, digital harassment, and the erosion of privacy. Modern celebrities balance authenticity with brand management, activism with monetization. While the mediums change, the human fascination with fame remains constant. From silent film icons to viral creators, celebrity culture mirrors society's evolving relationship with admiration, identity, and connection. A transformation from glamour to relatability and from pedestal to participation. 70. Radio dramas versus podcasts. During the 1930s and 40s, radio dramas were the heartbeat of entertainment. Families gathered around the living room radio, captivated by serialized stories like The Shadow or War of the Worlds. Voices, music, and sound effects painted vivid pictures in the imagination. Radio connected distant towns and shared national moments in real time. In the 2020s, that magic has re-emerged in a new form: podcasts. With smartphones replacing radios, storytelling has gone portable and personal. Podcasts cover every topic imaginable: true crime, science, comedy, philosophy, and personal growth. They restore the intimacy of voice, the feeling of being spoken to, not at. Unlike the scheduled broadcasts of the past, podcasts empower listeners to curate their experience. The technology changed, but the essence endures. People crave stories that speak directly to them. From the golden hum of vacuum tubes to digital earbuds, the spoken word continues its journey, bridging eras, inspiring minds and turning solitude into connection. 71. Live performance revival. Live performance has always been humanity's oldest art. From ancient amphitheaters to early 20th century vaudeville, audiences sought the thrill of the unrepeatable moment. Yet, as cinema and television rose, stage art seemed to wane. The mid-century saw many theaters close, replaced by screens and studios. However, the 21st century rekindled live performance in new ways. Musicals, concerts, stand-up comedy, and immersive theatre experiences now flourish alongside digital media. The 2020s, especially after the pandemic's isolation, reignited appreciation for physical presence, the electric exchange between performer and audience. Technology enhances live art rather than replaces it, using projections, soundscapes, and lighting to deepen emotion. Virtual performances and global live streams extend the stage beyond geography. The revival proves that, despite technological evolution, human connection remains irreplaceable. From Shakespearean stages to stadium tours, live performance endures because it captures what no recording can: the pulse of shared experience, the breath of authenticity, the magic of now. 72. Censorship and expression. In the early 20th century, censorship governed morality and art alike. The Hays Code of the 1930s dictated what could be seen or said in American cinema, restricting language, sexuality, and social critique. Governments and religious groups worldwide shaped what citizens could read, watch, or hear. Art was filtered through fear. The late 20th century brought rebellion. Filmmakers, musicians, and writers challenged censorship in pursuit of authenticity. By the 2020s, digital freedom allowed anyone to publish and express without gatekeepers, but also invited new forms of control. Algorithms, content moderation, and cancel culture redefine boundaries in complex ways. Expression today navigates both liberation and surveillance. Voices, once silenced, now thrive, yet misinformation and hate speech demand responsibility. The struggle between freedom and restraint continues, evolving with technology and society's values. From censored scripts to viral tweets, expression remains the pulse of progress, forever testing where art ends and authority begins. 73. Sound, technology, improvements. In the early days of film and radio, sound was a novelty. The 1920s introduction of talkies transformed silent cinema into immersive storytelling. Analog recording captured warmth but limited clarity. Vinyl records, magnetic tape, and radio waves defined mid-century sound culture. By the 2020s, digital audio dominates. Surround sound, noise cancellation, and spatial recording create experiences once unimaginable. Musicians record entire albums from home studios, while filmmakers craft audio worlds through computer software. Streaming platforms deliver high-fidelity sound instantly across the globe. Even hearing aids and medical implants benefit from acoustic innovation. Yet, nostalgia persists. Many still cherish the crackle of vinyl or the depth of analog tone. Sound technology's journey reflects humanity's desire for immersion and perfection. From gramophones to algorithms, every advancement amplifies our most primal connection, the power of listening. Sound not only transmits information, it evokes emotion, shaping how we experience art, memory, and one another. 74. Advertising in entertainment. In the early 20th century, advertising crept into entertainment through radio jingles and product sponsorships. Brought to you by became the phrase of an era. Television expanded this symbiosis, with commercials shaping pop culture as much as the shows themselves. By the 2020s, advertising is everywhere and nowhere at once. Product placements blend seamlessly into movies. Influencer promotions drive social media engagement, and algorithms deliver hyper-targeted ads that match each viewer's interests. The line between entertainment and marketing has blurred entirely. Audiences, once passive consumers, now co-create trends through shares and reactions. While traditional ads fade, brand storytelling thrives, narratives that sell identity as much as product. This evolution raises ethical questions about manipulation and attention. From catchy jingles to invisible algorithms, advertising's role in entertainment mirrors our changing desires to be moved, amused, and persuaded all at once. 75. Shared experiences, communal versus personalized media. Once, entertainment was communal. Families huddled around radios, cinemas filled with laughter, and millions tuned into the same live broadcasts. The mid-20th century thrived on collective culture, shared moments that united strangers through simultaneous experience. By the 2020s, personalization defines media. Algorithms curate individual playlists, news feeds, and recommendations. Everyone lives in a private media universe tailored to taste. While this customization enhances satisfaction, it fragments connection. The water cooler moment has faded, replaced by niche communities online. Yet, shared experiences persist in new forms. Global streaming premieres, viral memes, and live sports watched on social media unite audiences across borders. Humanity continues to crave connection through story, no matter the medium. From crowded theaters to curated feeds, the balance between individuality and community shapes how we experience art, and how art, in turn, reflects who we are. 76. Hospitals and equipment, simple wards to advanced ICUs. In the early 20th century, hospitals were often modest community wards, functional but limited in resources. Metal beds lined shared rooms, and equipment was simple: stethoscopes, mercury thermometers, and manual blood pressure cuffs. Doctors relied heavily on observation and experience rather than machines. Infections were common, and sterile practices were still evolving. By the 2020s, hospitals resemble technological ecosystems. Intensive care units feature ventilators, robotic surgical tools, and digital monitoring systems that track every heartbeat. Imaging technologies, CT scans, MRIs, and ultrasounds allow physicians to see inside the human body with precision once deemed miraculous. Telemedicine now connects patients to specialists worldwide, and electronic records streamline care coordination. Yet, even with these advancements, humanity remains at the center. The beeping machines, touchscreens, and data charts all serve one enduring mission: to heal. The journey from simple wards to advanced ICUs tells a story of compassion enhanced by innovation, where science and empathy work hand in hand to extend and improve life. 77. Vaccines and public health. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, disease outbreaks like smallpox, polio, and tuberculosis shaped societies with fear and loss. Public health infrastructure was rudimentary, and vaccines were experimental marvels. The introduction of the smallpox vaccine marked one of humanity's first great medical triumphs. By the mid-20th century, vaccination campaigns, especially against polio, became global movements of hope and science. In the 2020s, vaccines have evolved into complex biotechnological achievements, from mRNA technology to multi-strain flu prevention. Public health organizations coordinate worldwide efforts to combat pandemics. Yet misinformation and political resistance remain modern obstacles. The COVID-19 pandemic reminded the world that public health depends as much on trust as on science. Vaccines no longer symbolize only protection. They represent cooperation, education, and global responsibility. From the first syringe to drone-delivered doses, vaccination reflects the shared human pursuit of survival science, wielded not for profit, but for the preservation of life across borders and generations. 78. Life expectancy, growth. At the dawn of the 20th century, the average life expectancy hovered around 40 to 50 years. Disease, malnutrition, and poor sanitation claimed millions prematurely. Infant mortality was heartbreakingly common, and medical care was limited to the privileged few. Fast forward to the 2020s, and global life expectancy surpasses 70 years, with many nations exceeding 80. This transformation stems from cleaner water, better diets, vaccines, antibiotics, and advanced medicine. Technology has made early diagnosis and prevention accessible to millions. Yet, longevity brings new challenges: aging populations, chronic illnesses, and healthcare costs. The question has shifted from how long people live to how well. Modern medicine strives for quality of life, not mere survival. From hand-washed linens in early hospitals to robotic surgeries today, the increase in life expectancy tells a story of resilience, adaptation, and relentless curiosity. Each added decade reflects progress not just in science, but in compassion and human will. 79. Nutrition and food awareness. In the early 20th century, food was local, seasonal, and often scarce. Families relied on home gardens, preservation techniques, and modest diets rich in grains and vegetables. Nutritional science was in its infancy, and processed foods were rare luxuries. Malnutrition and deficiency diseases like rickets or scurvy were common. By the 2020s, food culture has transformed into a global, data-driven phenomenon. Supermarkets offer products from every continent, while dietary trends from veganism to keto reflect a growing awareness of health and sustainability. Calorie counts, food pyramids, and organic labels guide consumption, while social media amplifies food consciousness. Yet, this abundance also brings contradiction. Obesity and food insecurity coexist within the same cities. Technology, from genetic modification to lab-grown meat, promises sustainability but raises ethical debates. Nutrition today is not just about survival, it's about balance, identity, and ethics. From subsistence farming to personalized meal plans, humanity's relationship with food reveals both progress and paradox. Nourishment shaped by choice, culture, and conscience. 80. Mental health understanding. A century ago, mental illness was often misunderstood, hidden, or punished. Asylums isolated patients, and stigma silenced families. Conditions like depression or anxiety were seen as weakness, not illness. The mid-20th century brought psychoanalysis and the early rise of psychiatry, but compassion was still limited. By the 2020s, mental health stands at the forefront of global awareness. Therapy, medication, and mindfulness practices are recognized as essential to well-being. Campaigns advocate for openness, and digital tools provide access to counseling worldwide. Yet, challenges persist. Social media pressures, economic instability, and loneliness contribute to new forms of distress. The conversation has evolved from curing madness to maintaining wellness. Workplaces promote mental health days, and schools teach emotional intelligence. What was once confined to shadows now stands in public light. The journey from asylums to acceptance represents one of humanity's most profound shifts, understanding that the mind, too, deserves care, empathy, and healing. 81. Women's healthcare access. In the early 20th century, women's healthcare was largely ignored or misunderstood. Female anatomy and reproductive health were taboo subjects, often neglected in medical research dominated by men. Childbirth was risky, and maternal mortality rates were high. Access to contraception was restricted, and many women suffered silently through preventable conditions. By the 2020s, women's healthcare has advanced dramatically. Maternal care, reproductive rights, and gender-specific research are central to global health policy. Birth control and safe abortion access empower autonomy, while digital health apps monitor cycles and fertility. Despite progress, inequalities persist, especially in developing nations where access to basic care remains limited. Movements advocating for reproductive justice and equal medical representation continue to shape modern discourse. From the secrecy of early medicine to the openness of contemporary advocacy, women's healthcare reflects a broader truth: that dignity and equality in health are inseparable from human progress itself. 82. Surgery and recovery times. In the early 20th century, surgery was an ordeal of courage and uncertainty. Without antibiotics, infection was a constant threat. Anesthesia was crude, and patients faced long, painful recoveries. Surgeons relied on skill and luck more than technology. By the 2020s, the surgical landscape is transformed. Minimally invasive procedures, robotic assistance, and laser precision have reduced risk and recovery times dramatically. A patient once confined to a hospital for weeks may now return home in days or even hours. Imaging technology allows preoperative mapping, while 3D printing produces custom implants. Yet, even with these marvels, the surgeon's hands remain guided by empathy and trust. The evolution of surgery tells a story not just of innovation, but of courage, from the candlelit operating rooms of the past to today's sterile, robotic precision. Every incision marks the boundary between vulnerability and hope. 83. Exercise and fitness culture. In the early 20th century, physical activity was woven naturally into daily life. Walking, farming, and manual labor kept most people fit without conscious effort. Exercise as recreation was rare, limited to sports clubs and military training. By the late 20th century, gyms, aerobics, and jogging became cultural phenomena. The 2020s have elevated fitness into a lifestyle industry tracked by wearable devices, fueled by social media, and intertwined with identity. Yoga, CrossFit, and virtual workouts blur the line between physical and digital worlds. Yet, the motivation remains timeless: to feel strong, to stay healthy, to belong. Modern fitness culture merges science, community, and self-expression. From the fields of labor to the glow of smartwatches, the pursuit of movement continues as a reflection of vitality, a reminder that while technology evolves, the human body's need for motion never fades. 84. Medical records paper to digital. Hospitals of the early 20th century relied on handwritten charts, bound notebooks, and filing cabinets filled with paper. Patient information was difficult to share, prone to error, and often lost in translation between doctors. The 2020s have replaced ink and folders with data clouds and digital interfaces. Electronic health records, EHRs, allow instant access to a patient's history anywhere in the world. Artificial intelligence analyzes data to predict risks and suggest treatments. Privacy, however, remains a critical concern. Digital convenience brings vulnerability to breaches and misuse. Still, digital records represent a revolution in efficiency and collaboration. From smudged ink to encrypted servers, medicine's memory has gone global, ensuring that every heartbeat, diagnosis, and prescription becomes part of a vast, living record of human care. 85. The cost of healthcare. In the early 20th century, healthcare costs were minimal compared to today, but so were the services available. Doctors often accepted barter or small payments, and hospitals were charitable institutions. Advanced treatments were rare, and access depended largely on class and geography. By the 2020s, medicine has become both a triumph and a challenge. Life-saving technologies, pharmaceuticals, and surgeries extend lives but strain economies. In many nations, healthcare expenses rival education or housing costs, creating debates about universal access and privatization. Insurance systems, government policies, and global aid all struggle to balance innovation with affordability. The cost of care now measures not only currency, but equity. From humble clinics to billion-dollar hospital systems, healthcare's evolution reveals a moral question as much as a financial one. How to ensure that progress serves all, not just those who can afford it. The journey from charity wards to complex insurance models encapsulates both the miracle and the burden of modern medicine, its power to heal and its price to sustain. 86. Air and water quality awareness. In the early 20th century, pollution was largely invisible to public concern. Factories filled skies with soot, and rivers carried industrial waste unchecked. Clean air and water were assumed to be endless, and environmental science was still emerging. By the 1970s, smog-filled cities and toxic spills awakened awareness, sparking environmental laws and global activism. By the 2020s, technology tracks every particle and chemical trace. Air purifiers, water filters, and sustainability apps make environmental awareness part of daily life. Yet, despite progress, urban pollution and climate-related contamination persist. The fight has shifted from ignorance to responsibility, from unchecked exploitation to conscious preservation. Clean air and water are no longer luxuries. They are recognized as universal rights essential for survival. 87. Urbanization and sprawl. In the early 1900s, most people lived in rural communities, tied to land and labor. Cities were centers of industry, but small by modern standards. After World War II, suburban sprawl redefined living white picket fences replacing farmland. By the 2020s, urbanization dominates the planet. Megacities rise with skylines stretching for miles, yet housing shortages and congestion challenge quality of life. Green architecture and smart cities aim to restore balance, blending technology with sustainability. The human journey from village to vertical city reflects both progress and disconnection, a quest for opportunity that redefines what home means in an increasingly urban world. 88. Farming practices manual plows to precision agriculture. A century ago, farming was labor-intensive and seasonal. Horses, wooden plows, and hand tools shaped harvests. Weather dictated success, and crop failures could devastate families. By the 2020s, drones, GPS mapping, and data analytics guide farmers in real time. Precision agriculture monitors soil health, moisture, and nutrients with scientific accuracy. Machines plant, irrigate, and harvest with minimal waste. Yet, challenges remain. Corporate farming threatens smallholders, and soil degradation persists. Agriculture now balances innovation with stewardship, producing more with less, while protecting the earth that feeds us. 89. Energy sources, coal to renewables. In the early 20th century, coal powered everything from locomotives to factories. Oil soon followed, fueling the modern age of cars and consumption. Energy abundance built economies but scarred ecosystems. By the 2020s, renewable energy defines the new frontier. Solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal power challenge fossil dominance. Homes generate their own electricity, and electric grids evolve into smart systems. The transition remains incomplete but inevitable, a revolution powered not by fire, but by foresight. Humanity's energy story now reflects its moral compass. Progress measured not in profit, but in preservation. 90. Wildlife conservation movements. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, wildlife was abundant but unprotected. Hunting, deforestation, and industrial expansion pushed countless species toward extinction. By the mid-20th century, voices like Rachel Carson's Silent Spring ignited change. Sanctuaries, national parks, and international treaties began to preserve what remained. By the 2020s, technology aids conservation through satellite tracking, DNA analysis, and global awareness campaigns. Yet, climate change and habitat loss still threaten biodiversity. Conservation has evolved from rescue to restoration, from saving animals to safeguarding entire ecosystems, ensuring that nature's chorus endures for generations. 91. Recycling and waste culture. In the early decades of the 20th century, waste was minimal. People reused containers, mended clothes, and composted instinctively. Industrial growth, however, introduced disposable culture. By the 1980s, landfills overflowed, and recycling bins became modern symbols of conscience. By the 2020s, circular economies emerge, transforming waste into resource. Plastic bans, upcycling, and zero-waste movements redefine consumption. Yet, global waste production continues to soar. The struggle lies not only in recycling materials but in rethinking habits. From tin cans to biodegradable packaging, society's progress depends on turning responsibility into routine. 92. Space exploration dreams. The dream of flight beyond Earth began as fantasy. In the 1950s and 60s, the space race transformed imagination into achievement. Sputnik's beeps and Apollo's moon landing proved humanity's reach beyond gravity. By the 2020s, exploration extends to Mars missions, private rockets, and orbiting tourism. Space has become a stage for innovation and competition alike. Yet, the dream remains pure: to discover, to understand, to expand the boundaries of possibility. From dusty launch pads to interplanetary ambitions, space exploration mirrors humanity's eternal quest to look up and move forward. 93. Climate concerns. Then versus now. In the early 20th century, industrial progress was unquestioned. The concept of climate change was unknown, and smokestacks symbolized success. By the 1970s, scientists began warning of rising temperatures and melting ice. By the 2020s, climate concern defines policy, protest, and progress. Renewable energy, carbon reduction, and sustainability dominate discourse, yet action lags behind awareness. Generations now inherit both the benefits and burdens of industrialization. The difference between then and now is consciousness, an awakening that survival depends on harmony with the planet, not dominance over it. 94. Architecture and design shifts. Early 20th century architecture emphasized craftsmanship, wood, stone, and symmetry. The mid-century modernist wave brought steel, glass, and simplicity. Cities grew upward, defining skylines of ambition. By the 2020s, sustainability shapes design philosophy. Green roofs, recycled materials, and energy-efficient buildings blend technology with nature. Smart homes adapt to climate, while urban planning embraces inclusivity and resilience. Architecture now tells stories not only of beauty but of responsibility. From marble columns to solar panels, design evolves as both art and conscience. 95. Transportation, emissions, and electric solutions. In the early 1900s, horse-drawn carriages gave way to gasoline engines. The freedom of the automobile defined modernity, yet exhaust and oil dependence soon followed. By the 2020s, electric vehicles lead a silent revolution. Batteries replace tanks, and charging stations outnumber gas pumps in forward-looking cities. Public transit electrifies, and emission goals drive innovation. Still, The journey continues toward cleaner energy, smarter infrastructure, and shared responsibility. From roaring engines to quiet motors, transportation's transformation marks humanity's pledge to move without harm. 96. Family structures and values. A century ago, families followed tradition, extended households, clear gender roles, and lifelong marriages. The father led, the mother nurtured, and children obeyed. By the 2020s, families exist in countless forms: single parents, blended homes, and chosen families. Equality and emotional connection replace rigid hierarchy. Technology bridges distance, yet also challenges intimacy. While forms change, the essence remains: love, care, and belonging. From patriarchal duty to partnership and understanding, family evolves with the times, ever adapting, ever enduring. 97. Community and belonging. In early neighborhoods, community meant proximity, knowing every face, sharing bread, and helping during hardship. Churches, schools, and town halls were gathering points of unity. By the 2020s, belonging has gone digital. Online communities unite people by interest rather than geography. Virtual friendships cross continents, yet physical isolation grows. The meaning of belonging now straddles screens and streets. Still, the core remains human: the need to be seen, valued, and connected. From village gatherings to virtual chats, community evolves, but the heart remains the same. 98. Patriotism and national mood. In the early 20th century, patriotism was a banner that fluttered over every home, school, and heart. It was simple, powerful, and largely unquestioned. The world wars had forged not only armies but also identities. When young men marched to distant battlefields in the 19-teens and 1940s, they carried with them a faith that their sacrifice would protect freedom and secure the future. Flags hung proudly from porches, anthems were sung with trembling devotion, and unity was born from shared struggle. Patriotism, in those days, meant belonging to something larger than oneself, a common cause built upon duty, loyalty, and sacrifice. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, this same patriotic spirit sustained hope amid despair. Even when the economy collapsed and bread lines stretched across city blocks, Americans believed in renewal. The image of the flag flying over dust-choked farms or crumbling factories became a reminder that endurance itself was an act of love for one's country. In the face of hunger, people did not abandon their national pride. They clung to it as proof that the nation, like its citizens, could recover. The Second World War deepened that collective devotion. Posters urged men to enlist and women to work, declaring that freedom is everybody's job. Patriotism was woven into every factory shift and victory garden. The war effort united the nation across gender and class, even as racial and social divides remained. To love one's country meant to labor for it, to defend it, and, if necessary, to die for it. That generation's pride was resolute, its loyalty unconditional. Yet as the 20th century unfolded, the simplicity of patriotism began to evolve. The post-war boom of the 1950s brought prosperity and optimism, but also conformity. School children recited pledges each morning, while television screens glowed with images of idealized families in perfect suburban homes. Patriotism, for many, became synonymous with stability and success. However, beneath that sheen of harmony, new voices began to question what loyalty truly meant. The 1960s and 1970s marked a seismic shift in national mood. The civil rights movement, the Vietnam War, and waves of protest fractured the illusion of unanimous pride. For the first time in modern memory, loving one's country could mean challenging it. Marchers sang, "We shall overcome" as a different kind of anthem, an appeal to the promise of equality enshrined in the nation's founding ideals. Veterans returned from foreign battlefields to face division at home. Young people burned draft cards, not because they hated their country, but because they believed patriotism required moral courage, not blind obedience. The American flag, once a universal symbol of unity, became contested ground, both an emblem of freedom and a mirror reflecting the nation's flaws. By the 1980s, patriotism re-emerged in renewed forms. Political rhetoric and popular culture revived pride in military strength and economic success. The image of the flag was once again celebrated, this time against the backdrop of a Cold War victory and growing technological confidence. National pride surged as astronauts planted flags on the moon, and as Olympic athletes raised them on global stages. Yet this revival carried undertones of nostalgia, a longing for a simpler, more unified vision of national identity that could never fully return. The attacks of September 11th in the early 2000s reignited patriotism with heartbreaking immediacy. In the aftermath of tragedy, millions of citizens raised flags once more, not as a symbol of triumph, but of shared mourning and defiance. For a brief moment, the nation stood as one, bound by grief and determination. Yet even this unity proved fragile. As years passed, debates over war, security, and surveillance reignited old divisions. Patriotism once again became a mirror for reflection, revealing both the best and the most conflicted parts of national character. By the 2020s, patriotism had transformed into something far more layered, nuanced, and self-aware. It was no longer the unquestioned devotion of earlier generations, but a dynamic conversation between love and accountability. Younger citizens grew up in a world more connected than ever before, where identity was shaped not only by nation, but by global awareness. They saw patriotism not as blind allegiance, but as an active responsibility, to question injustice, to confront history honestly, and to expand the promise of freedom to all. For this generation, waving a flag and marching in protest can both be acts of patriotism. One celebrates the nation's ideals, the other demands that it live up to them. Diversity, once seen as a challenge to unity, has become its greatest strength. The modern patriot may wear different colors, speak different languages, or march for different causes, but they share a common belief that love of country means striving to make it better. The heart of patriotism has shifted from pride alone to progress through accountability. This evolution does not mean that devotion has faded. Rather, it has matured. Patriotism in the 21st century is no longer about perfection but persistence, the willingness to face uncomfortable truths and still believe in the nation's potential for renewal. It is about listening as much as declaring, building as much as defending. The parades of earlier decades have not vanished. They coexist now with vigils, rallies, and campaigns that reflect the complexity of collective identity. In an era defined by social media and global dialogue, patriotism is both amplified and challenged. The world watches as nations define themselves through inclusion or isolation, empathy or indifference. Yet, amid the noise of online debate and political polarization, the essence of patriotism endures. It is found in the quiet acts of service, a teacher shaping future citizens, a volunteer feeding the hungry, a voter believing that participation still matters. These are the modern forms of allegiance, less about symbolism and more about stewardship. Ultimately, patriotism is not static. It is a living conversation between a nation and its people. It has traveled from the battlefields of the 1940s to the digital platforms of the 2020s, changing shape with each generation but never losing its core. The national mood may swing between pride and doubt, unity and division, but beneath it all lies the same enduring question. What does it mean to love one's country? The answer, perhaps, is this: patriotism is not blind faith, nor cynical detachment, but the balance between the two. It is the courage to see both the greatness and the imperfection of a nation, and to continue believing that improvement is possible. True patriotism, then and now, is not measured by how loudly one declares love for a flag, but by how deeply one commits to the ideals it represents: justice, equality, and freedom for all. From parades to protests, from hymns to hashtags, the story of patriotism is the story of a people still learning what it means to stand together. The flags may change, the tone may evolve, but the purpose remains the same: to build a nation worthy of its promise, and to carry its hope forward into every new century. 99. The American Dream, then and now. In the 1940s and 1950s, the American dream was both a promise and a purpose. It symbolized stability after years of global turmoil, an ideal built upon the ashes of the Great Depression and the triumphs of the Second World War. Returning soldiers longed for normalcy, a modest home, steady employment, and a loving family. The suburban boom reflected this yearning, as newly built neighborhoods offered the emblematic white picket fences, green lawns, and the sense of belonging to something bigger than oneself. Ownership of a home, a car, and one's destiny was the truest mark of success. For millions of immigrants arriving on American shores, it meant freedom, opportunity, and the belief that with hard work, anything was possible. This dream was nurtured in an age of industrial expansion. Factories thrived, unions fought for fair wages, and the middle class grew stronger. Advertisements painted an image of contentment, smiling families gathered around dinner tables, a refrigerator humming softly in the background. The American dream was tangible, measurable, and deeply tied to material success. Yet, beneath its polished image lay unseen inequalities. Women, people of color, and the working poor often found themselves shut out of this promise. Still, the vision persisted, an enduring symbol of national identity and hope. By the 1970s and 1980s, the dream began to shift. Rising consumerism and a culture of competition redefined success as not merely owning a home, but owning more bigger houses, faster cars, and the latest technologies. The American dream became synonymous with upward mobility and individual achievement. Yet, as prices soared and industries declined, cracks appeared in its foundation. Economic recessions, globalization, and automation transformed the meaning of security. Hard work no longer guaranteed prosperity. For many, debt replaced savings, and the once clear path to stability became uncertain. Then came the digital revolution of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. By the 2020s, the dream had evolved once again, reshaped by technology, diversity, and the shifting values of a globalized world. Success was no longer defined solely by material gain, but by personal fulfillment, creativity, and freedom. Young generations sought not just wealth but purpose, careers that aligned with values, lifestyles that embraced sustainability, and relationships built on authenticity rather than conformity. In this era, the home was no longer just a house, but could be anywhere: a city apartment, a van on the road, or a digital workspace. The rise of remote work and entrepreneurship blurred the lines between career and identity. Ownership became less about possessions and more about experiences, travel, innovation, and the ability to live on one's own terms. Yet, this transformation brought new challenges. Economic inequality widened, housing prices skyrocketed, and student debt burdened millions. For some, the dream felt further away than ever. And yet, it endures. The American dream remains an evolving reflection of hope, reinvented by every generation. It has shifted from material comfort to emotional and creative freedom, from exclusivity to inclusivity, from survival to self-expression. Today, it is no longer defined by a single vision but by countless individual interpretations, each one an echo of that timeless belief that tomorrow can be better than today. The dream, once bound by borders and tradition, now lives in the limitless landscape of human imagination. Whether in suburban homes or digital worlds, the American dream continues to symbolize not perfection, but the pursuit of possibility. 100. Resilience and hope across generations. Across the vast expanse of modern history, from the early 20th century to the 2020s, humanity's defining trait has not been its inventions or conquests, but its resilience. From the dust storms of the Great Depression to the flames of the Second World War, from the Cold War's fear to the digital age's uncertainty, every generation has faced trials that tested the limits of endurance. Yet, through it all, hope has remained an unbreakable thread, a quiet, persistent faith that better days will come. In the 1930s, resilience meant survival. Families endured scarcity with courage, stretching every meal and sharing every resource. Hope was found in community, in neighbors helping neighbors, in songs sung on porches, and in letters that crossed oceans. Then came war, demanding even greater sacrifice. Soldiers on distant fronts fought not only for victory, but for the promise of peace, while those at home filled factories, tended gardens, and waited with steadfast hearts. When the war finally ended, resilience became rebuilding, cities rose again, families reunited, and the world dreamed anew. The mid-century brought fresh trials, civil rights struggles, political upheaval, and cultural revolutions. Each era tested society's moral strength. In the 1960s and 70s, young voices filled the streets, demanding equality, justice, and an end to silence. Their courage reshaped nations, proving that resilience is not only endurance but also transformation, the ability to change in the face of injustice. As the decades passed, new challenges emerged. The late 20th century saw the rise of global markets, environmental concerns, and technological dependence. The early 21st century ushered in new trials, terrorism, pandemics, and the dizzying pace of digital life. The world grew more connected, but also more complex. Information traveled faster than ever, but truth became harder to find. In this whirlwind of change, resilience took on new forms. Emotional endurance, adaptability, and the courage to rebuild lives disrupted by forces beyond control. By the 2020s, humanity once again stood at a crossroads. A global pandemic brought the world to a standstill, revealing both fragility and strength. Health workers became heroes, families rediscovered closeness, and entire communities found creative ways to endure isolation. Technology bridged distances, yet reminded everyone how vital human connection truly is. Economic instability, climate crises, and social divides challenged societies worldwide, but they also ignited movements of solidarity, innovation, and empathy. Today, resilience is measured not only by survival but by the ability to adapt with compassion. It is seen in young people demanding climate justice, in teachers guiding students through uncertainty, in parents balancing work and care, and in communities rebuilding after disaster. Hope is no longer a distant dream. It is an active force, built through everyday courage and collective effort. Resilience and hope are partners in humanity's story. One gives strength, the other gives direction. Without resilience, hope fades. Without hope, resilience has no purpose. Together, they form the bridge between past and future. The same spirit that carried ancestors through wars and depressions now fuels innovation, compassion, and renewal. As generations pass, the faces change, but the flame remains. Grandparents tell stories of survival. Children imagine futures yet unbuilt. Each act of kindness, each decision to persevere, continues this eternal cycle of hope. Humanity's greatest legacy is not wealth or power. It is the enduring belief that no matter how dark the night, dawn will come. The world may transform in ways unimaginable, but resilience and hope will always light the path forward.